My name is Galina. I work at Indeed, and I'm really happy to see our panelists here today, amazing women working in tech industry. And thank you so much for coming and taking time. I know it's after work hours. Hopefully you had time and chance to speak with our recruiters and who could help you review resumes if you wanted. I would like to introduce four panelists and moderator today. Is Julia Minkowski. Please. We also have Which one? This one? Okay, this one works actually. Okay. Who else I didn't introduce? Lilit, Julia, Lida Tohidi, please. And we have Lilit Yenokyan. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing last names or first names a little bit incorrect.
Close enough, thank you.
So Lilit is going to moderate the event. We have a few questions prepared for our panelists. We'll see how it goes, and after that, if you have any open questions, you can ask our panelists. We will be happy to help you to answer. Well, here we go.
Thanks, Galina. Are we doing the slides now?
Sure.
Okay. Awesome. So I would like to start off by telling you spending a few minutes to tell you about Anita B. AnitaB.org, and we have a few slides to do that. So essentially, the community, AnitaB.org, it's an extension of the ABI, basically ABI, Anita Borg Institute, institute that brings Grace Hopper to all of us every year. And what AnitaB.org strives to do is essentially have chapters across the world. And I'm one of the leaders of the Silicon Valley chapter. And our goals are to unite, women in tech and be very inclusive for all the backgrounds and the roles in technology around the idea of togetherness, about helping one another grow and succeed in our careers. So AnitaB.org got started as a simple email list called Sisters. It still is active to this day, and you can subscribe and get some really interesting notifications and discussions. And then lastly, it got rebranded last year. It was initially ABI local communities, and it got rebranded to AnitaB.org. But it's the same goal, same mission, and we host events across Bay Area. So please consider joining us. So we are connecting, inspiring, and guiding women and bringing this sense of togetherness. So yeah, we have many communities, several in the States, in Europe, and across the world. So if you travel, you can join one of those, and these are just some of the events that we've done in the past. Panels and an event at Computer History Museum, and more to come. So please do subscribe, and you can email us at siliconvalley@anitab.org at any time. I think that's it. Thank you.
We have some questions that our panelists were preparing for this discussion. Lilit, if you want to continue, that would be nice.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks, Galina. So To structure this panel, we have some pre-selected questions that we thought would be relevant to the audience. And we'll start from there, but this will be very organic discussion, and we'll definitely make sure to leave some time at the end for you to ask any of the questions that you have. So first of all, let me start off by a round of introductions, and I would like for each one of our panelists to introduce themselves in a few minutes and tell what roles you play in like recruiting and hiring. Julia, why don't we start with you?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes, perfect. I'm Julia Minkowski. I'm working at cybersecurity field, and I specialize on identity fraud detection in payments and e-commerce. So my field of interest is analytics. So I'm here going to talk about resumes from analytical standpoint. In addition, I do have a networking group that called Russian-speaking Women in Technology Silicon Valley that accounts for 2,600 women. And we organized so far more than 30 events because my passion is to help women, to help everyone, but especially women to progress, because there is a big gap between the skills and between the employment and salaries.
Lida?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm Lida Tohidi. I run a small consultancy, and we focus on marketing for mostly health and wellness companies. And before that, I actually, much longer before that, so almost 12 years ago now, I graduated from a science degree, which I have yet to use. So I definitely know what it's like coming into marketing from a very untraditional path. Like some of you, I think you're also transitioning into a different field. So I'm happy to talk about that. I have also been on all sides of the startup funding table or the ecosystem. So I have worked at a fund. I have been a startup founder and had a tiny Canadian-sized exit, and then thought I could come to San Francisco and make it work here. So that's what I did 4 years ago. And here I've been mostly leading marketing teams for startups until, just over a year and a half ago when I've started my own consultancy with a few others. So that's me professionally. And I've been a recruiting manager for just over 5 years. So I'm happy to talk to you about what that has been like, because I have also, like I said, seen people from different backgrounds breaking into tech. So I'm happy to talk about what does and doesn't work from the recruiters and definitely the hiring manager's perspective. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Williams. I lead a lot of the centralized design practices here at Indeed, and super excited to be here. Thank you for joining us this evening. Before I joined Indeed, personally and professionally, I was like that go-to person for my friends and family to say, hey, Kim, can you check out my resume? Can you help me think about what I might do next? And so I've always been this person that just talked to people about what they were trying to do, and it was always without explicitly saying, Kim, help me tell my story through my resume. And that's kind of what I did, listening, connecting the dots, finding what people's passion areas are and what they want to focus in on is kind of something that I get a lot of personal enjoyment out of, and why Indeed is such a great fit for me, because I'm doing that at scale for millions of people every day that are looking for work. And so super excited to chat all things about resume. And of course, I lead a team of about 85 plus people distributed across the world. And so I am always thinking about how do you grow talent? How do you think about your career? How do we hire, attract, and retain folks? So glad to be here and a part of the conversation.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. I think this is really a really great and diverse panel in the sense of everybody has spent so much time hiring and reviewing resumes and from really different perspectives. So that's amazing. As of myself, I'm Lilit Yenokyan. I'm a director of engineering at a startup, which means like 16% team. It's not a huge startup, but that's something that we built in the last year. As part of this, I've done a lot of interviews and participated in all parts of sourcing, starting looking at the LinkedIn profiles, doing cold calls, searches. Sometimes candidates get back to us and we jump from joy. So yeah, that's where we are. So awesome, thank you so much. Now I want to sort of start this discussion about, you've seen so many resumes, right? You've helped crafted stories and helped sort of differentiate the good ones from the bad ones. Why don't we speak a little about some of the usual mistakes or the pitfalls that you see people fall in on their resumes? Kim, please start.
Okay. I think, a big pitfall would be just attention to detail. I know I'm saying that from a creative or a design perspective, but I think attention to detail is something that matters regardless of what industry you're in. And so, really, really spell checking and like considering grammar and all of that. So I think that's just like table stakes. And then beyond that, I think a mistake would be to think that telling your story has to be one page or has to look a certain kind of way. Definitely know your audience and who you're trying to connect with. That's super important. But don't be afraid of being your authentic self and standing out in your unique way. And so yeah, that's what I would say.
Just to follow up on this, when you're saying about like proofreading, right, making no grammar mistakes, like for somebody like myself whose English is a second language, would you recommend working with a professional or just running it by a friend? What's the best approach?
Yeah, definitely whatever you have access to. So friends make some really, really great critique partners when it comes to your resume. So definitely leverage your community. If you have access to a copywriter, that's also awesome, but I'm sure your community will show up for you. It's certainly what I have done for the past few years and continue to do today.
I think also if you haven't gone to the back, for the awesome recruiters who are here, I've gotten very great feedback from people who have gone, so definitely run your resume by them. I think, to your point, there are some very obvious red flags. I think one of them for me, especially because I've lived and worked all over the world, so I felt this firsthand when I was starting to do that. So I would be applying to a job in Tokyo, for example, with like a Canada address, and that doesn't really fly unless you're very explicit in how you explain it in the cover letter. So it sounds very simple, and all of you are here in San Francisco, but for those who are maybe watching this after, if you are going into a market and you haven't yet relocated there, it's okay to put the same city as the place you will be moving, because it's otherwise a red flag where people will think, okay, this person's just sending out a bunch of resumes, or they may feel that you're not committed to moving. So it just does you a big solid favor for yourself to just put the city. You never need to put your full address. That's not a red flag as much as it just makes me curious what neighborhood you live in, and I don't necessarily need to know as a hiring manager. So yeah, that's just something. If you're looking to relocate elsewhere, even in the same country, definitely put the city that of your destination.
I have seen something very interesting. Some people put the email. Some people put an email that says John the Ghost, or some like funky email addresses. So the suggestion, of course, it's a big no, right? We're talking about professional thing, and humor, it's very good when people know you better, right, closer. But think about like an email address, even when it's like private, like Julia Sweetheart, no, it's not. This is not working for professional resume. Fonts, right? Fonts, if you put more than 2 types of fonts, different styles, it looks a little bit weird. And sometimes people go a little bit crazy with like sizes, different sizes, fonts, and too many indents. So it's, first of all, resume, it's a piece of art, right? So it's better off it's to be aesthetic. So with font, just people suggest not to exceed 2 types of fonts or 2 sizes. You will see, when you will try to work, you will see how it's not so easy, but it's possible. Sometimes you want to highlight something, and then you want to highlight the place of work, and the years, and the position, and the bullet points, and the objectives, and your name, and your phone. So some people just use different fonts. Just put attention to that. And another big thing that, another big flag, it's irrelevant information. It's okay to put hobby, right? But if I'm going to work in data analysis, and I do have irrelevant experience, it's not like, how to say, it's okay not to put it, because if I had some student jobs, right, I was a babysitter like a long time ago, or some survival jobs, sometimes it's okay to put, but in technical resume, I don't think it will make any difference. So let's say that you are looking for a doctor. My relative, he's a doctor, and he does he has 2 specializations. One, it's plastic surgery, and another, it's like ear and nose, right? So he knows this. But if a person will come for some plastic work, plastic surgery, he's not going to show a lot of things that he was doing in like taking care of ear infections, right? But if a person will come with ear infection, they're not going to talk about like Botox, or, right? Even though he's great in both. Think about it, right? So irrelevance, it's a big pitfall. You are just dragging attention. And the third one is lack of numbers. So when we are talking about technology, about marketing, about business, numbers matter. So it's not only what you have done, but also show the numbers how you improved the processes. For instance, I shrank 20% of time by automating this and this process, right? I saved $3 million in losses in 2 quarters of last year. I helped to make a business lead for X millions of dollars. So try to quantify whatever job you were doing, because without the numbers, just the words have a very little effect. Okay, so with technology, to say I reduced in quality assurance, I reduced the number of bugs by X, I shrank the time from opening the bug until the resolution, like to put some KPIs. So lack of numbers, it's a factor, that it's kind of a negative factor.
And just to piggyback on that, I love that focus on the impact, because I think it is easy to just put down almost like the job description, like these are the things that I do, as opposed to talking about the unique impact that you make every day for your organization. Like, what is that? And if you don't have numbers specifically, you can speak to the outcomes even if you don't have a number, you can say, this is what this means, the impact of the work, even if you don't have numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the higher you go in your career ladder also, the more you want to have the numbers and information because that's what execs care about, Reduce this by this, refactored. Of course, you don't want to say how many lines of code you wrote, but other than that, it's great. And I was going to say you have one talented relative, Julia, there. Plastic surgeon, plus ear and nose, so amazing. So we started with the negative approach of like, what are the pitfalls, right? And now let's talk about a bit about the highlights, about what makes a stellar resume, what makes a resume stand out, some of the amazing ones maybe from your experience, and what are those like key takeaways that maybe we can all take and try to put to use tonight. Lida, why don't we start with you this time?
Sure. I think we kind of segued into that with the impact. So I was going to mention, similar to you, because some people would say, oh, should I make up numbers? I'm like, never embellish. So you could always reach out to your previous colleagues if you need to know certain impact metrics. But otherwise, if you don't have it, yeah, the outcome is something that's important. I think I'm going to answer this question in a different way. So I really enjoyed applications where there was not just a resume, but a cover letter that fed into the resume, because though you can personalize the resume and put the keywords from the job description to make sure it passes, the automated tracking system and any other bots that you have to fight with, it's very hard for me as a recruiting manager to know why you want to work for our team specifically. And I can tell you for a job that we didn't even put on Indeed, unfortunately, but I wish we had. At Omada Health, where I led a marketing team, we had over 100 applications, and then almost every person where I interviewed them, they answered the question of why you want to work here in the same way, which was, oh, I want to help people. And I mean, it's not a terrible answer. I'm sure people aren't going through their day saying, like, I want to do harm to people, but I can tell you the person we hired also had a killer cover letter. So I think, to answer your question in a roundabout way, the best resumes also came with the best cover letters, which meant that they would be the most prepared for the interviews. Because otherwise, it's like cookie cutter resume, cookie cutter interview. I don't know why I was surprised, but I was giving people chances. So yeah, please don't do copy-paste resume, copy-paste applications.
So cover letters are important. Do not skip them and make sure to put good ones.
In my humble opinion, yes. Like, even if a company is not asking you for a cover letter, unless you're going for Lilith's very specific engineering role where there's not enough of you and there's way more jobs, no recruiting manager is going to be hunting down your door. I can tell you for marketing roles, there's always more people than jobs that we're hiring for. So it kind of looks weird when I have applications with no cover letter. I would still interview with people, but I'm just saying, from all the numbers I saw, we never hired someone who didn't have a cover letter, because it just means you didn't put as much effort into applying. So that's just my maybe too honest approach to the application.
For me, I like to hire not only person who would have the required skills, because what I believe is that technology moves fast. And the last years, technology moves even faster. Each year, we have more and more new startups, new technologies. For instance, like to manage the tickets, like we had Jira, before we had Bugzilla, before we had something else. And tomorrow, it will be something different. With the databases, we had relational databases. Then now we have like all big data. Tomorrow, we will have new language for data scientists called Julia. Julia, yes. So, and no one knows this language, Julia, right? They make a joke, Julia is full of bugs. But when I hire people, right, what I, now seriously, so I look to a person. So it's not only about the skill set of today, I'm looking something beyond. I'm looking for the potential. So the resume somehow, I would try to read between the lines and from the resume to understand what type of person is that. Does this make sense? So to look for potential beyond just the skills.
Awesome. And how do you find it between the lines?
It's just comes with the exercise. Like more you read the resume, more you you learn. And of course, cover letters.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I do exercise my kind of hiring muscle. I usually say that person needs to have multiple muscles, right? The resume muscle, like more you write, more you adjust your resume for a position, better you become. And then it comes faster. For the same for interviewing, like on-site interview requires like totally different set of skills. Some people are really very good at writing their resumes, but they feel uncomfortable to go for an on-site interview. So some people, they're introverts, they really can write nicely, but they feel uncomfortable. Other people, they are totally opposite. And people who hire, they also exercise their hiring muscle. And I want to tell and test it in 10 years, when all of you will at least hire one person. It's not easy to find a job. We all know. It's stressful. Sometimes it's associated with some insecurity. But it's 10 times harder, trust me, to find a good hire. When you will be hiring and you will be going through the resumes, or you're going to interview people and you know what you need and business needs, and you will try to find people, you will realize that it's even 10 times harder. So my suggestion is to put yourself into the shoes of the person who is hiring. And think every single time, think about that. If I would be the person who is hiring, would I hire myself? It sounds very funny, but that's what sometimes I think. If I would be looking for position X, would I hire myself if I would be the hiring manager? Would I prefer some other person with some different skills? So this is my suggestion.
It kind of dovetails into the suggestion that I have, which is to help Julia as she reads between the lines, make it easier for her so that she's not doing all the detective work to understand who you are, because I think what you're looking for in between the lines is personality, is who are you, is, how will you be a culture add to this environment, what will you bring to the table, how do you work with others. So it's not just the technical skills, it's also the soft skills, not just can you do the job, do you want to do the job, are you excited and passionate about this space or this work? And then, help Julia not read between the lines and think about the whole package. So the cover letter, the resume, and then what's not on any of those things. Sometimes, not sometimes, I feel like all the time I Google candidates. So it's not just your resume and your cover letter, it is your digital footprint. I'm like, I want to know, my reading in between the lines is a Google search. I want to know, how you express yourself and is it a consistent picture? And I think a big mistake is to not think about the full digital footprint of yourself and how you represent yourself in all of these different ways. And a great opportunity is to make sure you have a consistent narrative about who you are and how you show up in the workplace.
I do that all the time too. I Google everybody I'm going to interview.
It looks like someone has a question.
Okay, maybe we can take one question, but
I think I can hear well. So, repeating the question, having a large or a small digital footprint is good or bad? Is that what you're going to ask? I'm now a fortune teller too, so I'm going to end your question. Is that what you want? So, okay, I'll answer and then I'll let Kim answer. So, I totally get that not everyone wants to go and put up a portfolio like I have or Kim has or maybe Lilith and Julia have. So sometimes you could put together something very simple, which is an about.me page, or just having the LinkedIn page. I feel like that is already, going to be your first digital footprint. They've gotten really good at matching the search engine optimization SEO. So anyone's name, when you type in their name, the LinkedIn is going to be in the first 3 links for sure by now. So if you don't want to invest in putting together a large digital footprint, if you don't have one, just invest in filling out your LinkedIn profile. And if that's too much work, then just get an about.me page and be like, hi world, I'm here. And if not, then you don't have to have one, but we're kind of checking. So that's my thing.
And in the future, this is something that Indeed is working on as well. Like, how do we help job seekers tell their best stories? So that's a personal passion area of mine and something I know that we will tackle. But I would say this, I'm like the least social person like on the planet. I very rarely tweet. I'm not even on Facebook. I'm not on the, I have a gram, but I'm not posting on the grams regularly. So it's not necessarily about you maintaining all of these things. It's what's out there about you and you owning that and making sure that that's consistent and aligns with what you're representing for yourself.
I wanted to add on LinkedIn to take a decent profile picture and put it on LinkedIn. It really helps. It should be a face, your face should be clearly shown. It shouldn't be blurry. I think it really helps set the intro about yourself so much better.
The question is, should you put your Instagram account on your page? I mean, I don't know. I've never been on the grams, so I don't have a handle. But I don't know. I've had people who, we were hiring for a marketing designer who did put it. So if you're comfortable with having it, then kudos to you. I've had a lot of portfolio links being added to resumes. So that's something that if you want it to be highlighted, you can betcha that we're gonna check for that.
So I wanted to, I did some homework, right? So about the resumes. In the resumes, once it was maybe even 8 years ago, they were one format and it was wow, very, very cool. But yesterday when I did some homework, I realized this is already passé. It's too old. So on the left, right, you will have the resume that I have, right? I had this resume not long ago, and then yesterday I realized, no, it's too old, right? So on the right, that would be more aesthetic, right? You see. Where can you find it? So yesterday I was Googling. There are some companies, Fiverr. Have you seen it? Fiverr, double R, right?
$5, yeah, double R.
Right? So for $10, some people from less fortunate countries, right, for very few dollars, they really would do this work for you, right? They will be happy, and you will be happy as well. So there are some designers that you can hire.
You can also, I live in a very fortunate, expensive country as you do. You can always email me and I can send you these templates for free. So you don't necessarily have to, outsource this work. But I think it really depends on, I feel like I also have a resume on the left and I've never penalized people for the formatting. So I think it's a personal decision, but that's just my my opinion.
Additional thing, it's too far, but here in this resume, it's listed the phone, the email, LinkedIn, and probably Instagram, but, professional portfolio. But what I want to say, some people forget, they just write email, just type it. Make your links work. Make sure that if you type LinkedIn profile, make this link just a hyperlink. So when, even from PDF today, the links are like clickable. Remember, sometimes don't waste the space. Instead of LinkedIn profile, right, and semicolon and all this link, ugly link, just make the LinkedIn like kind of, like icon. And when people click on it, you know what I'm talking about. Like when you have Facebook, LinkedIn, just this thing, when you click on it, or email, then they can directly get to your email, right? So, does this make sense?
Yeah.
Just clickable working links to your GitHub. By the way, we're talking about technical. Today, people who were accepted to jobs, they might have some sorts of portfolios, like on GitHub, right? So when you click on it, some hiring managers, they really go and they really check it out.
Yeah, just to echo what Lida also said, was that content is king. What you're saying matters so much more. If you have a beautiful resume that's not well written and doesn't tell your story and still has Julia reading between the lines, that doesn't matter. I would much rather the resume on the left that's well written than something that's designed and not well written. So what you have to say matters most.
So to continue this,
I have one more important question. So
sure. So then we will return. When I read between the lines, I have to mention, I read between the lines only the finalists because I'm not in HR and I am working. So the resumes that I end up reading, they are not the resumes that we get. Can you imagine, I worked for a startup in the Silicon Valley, startup of 150 people. How many resumes for the data analyst position did we get per day? Can you give me a guess? Small startup, not Google, not Facebook. 50, 1, 5, 7. We got 100 resumes. 100. So in 10 days, we have 1,000 resumes. That's why I told you, it's hard to find a job, but it's harder to find a good hire. Think about a person in HR that needs to read 1,000 resumes. I do not have this ability to read between the lines. I will read only the ones that they were pre-selected by the HR, that they went through the really like the phone interview and some primarily like some tests on HackerRank, and then it comes to me. And then I read between the lines.
thank you. So there is one important area that we wanted to make sure we cover today, and it's candidates from non-traditional backgrounds, right? If you're looking for a software engineer, because that's the closest to home, for somebody who hasn't gone to computer science school and maybe has done something completely different their whole life, and now they want to apply. So how, as a non-traditional background candidate, do you make sure that your resume gets attention versus several thousand others? And as a hiring manager also, how do you, or a recruiter, how do you intentionally make effort to pay attention to those profiles?
That's a great question. I think for the person that's transitioning, it's about how do you kind of package up all of your past experiences and translate them into what's relevant for the new industry that you're stepping into as you transition. Spending time getting to know folks that are already in that industry that you're transitioning into, getting some advice on what to look for, what are those pointers, and helping you translate, I think, is really helpful. I think what's really great about tech is we are so open to people with different backgrounds. I know a lot of designers that started out as biologists, or data scientists that became researchers. Like, we're pretty fluid and almost like respect so much more even when you come from a different background. And so as a hiring manager, I love to see that ambition where someone is taking a leap, is moving forward in a bold direction.
I think, yeah, to your point, getting to know people in the new industry, similar to putting your, city of destination. I think this is really important because, 10 plus years ago when I was looking for my first jobs, I was in academia, so it's a very different world. You just apply to jobs, and then based on your publications and how good you are, it's pretty meritocratic, at least when you're starting out, right? Not necessarily to become a full professor, that's a whole other thing. But then when I started applying for tech jobs, I would just cold apply. And especially because I had a background coming from academia, and then I worked in federal governments of Canada and Japan, I'm sure it didn't make sense to people. So initially I was wondering why I'm not getting callbacks. So I would say if there's any possibility for you to get a warm intro, especially if you're coming in from a different background into a new sector, get a warm intro. It doesn't necessarily need to be a referral. If you get a referral, that's even better. And also it's a win-win because for the other person, they generally are incentivized to do it. But even without that, just having someone, put an email to their hiring manager saying, oh, I know this person, I grabbed coffee with them and they're really great, that will do wonders. Of course, you then have to pass the test and actually do well in the interview process, but it will differentiate you from the pile because to Julia's point, in HR recruiting, folks get even more resumes that they're looking at than as recruiting managers. I try to go through every single one, and I do, but studies show that hiring managers spend 6 to 7 seconds per resume, so in that amount of time, you can be sure we're not getting much information. So if you want us to spend minutes on your resume, try to get an intro, try to get a referral, especially if you're transitioning from another field. Yeah, been there, done that, I can definitely tell you. Don't do it how I was doing it 10 years ago.
My experience was very interesting. Every single time I got a job in something that I know maybe 20%. So when I came to United States 10 years ago, I got a job at Verizon Wireless, and simply I passed technical exam because I was database developer. But it was in the Department of Identity Fraud Detection. So what happened that my advice and advice of Googlers, Facebook's people, you get to the company with your existing skills that you are really good at. You get to the company, you help them with that, and you in the company, you will also find the passion. You will, like a lot of companies, they do offer mobility, especially like in designer. It's kind of, you start with one project and then it's all the time, it's very, like it's moving. So I got my jobs with my existing skills that I was able to demonstrate. Some people are so good. I've seen people and I said, hell, how did you do that? Some people say, oh, I have zero background in this and I got that job. And I know that there are a lot of candidates who are really like they studied this thing and they are jobless, and some other people, and they really came with reference. That's what I found. People who had zero experience, they got this job that they never had any idea they got because of the reference. So otherwise, how would you get a job that you never performed? So it needs to be either that you're passionate, and some people had a lot of trust in your abilities, and it often works. They just like give it a try. Or you get whatever you're good at first, and then you find your way in the large organizations.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the answers. Now I want to open it for questions from the audience. Do we have any other mics we can pass around?
We have so many mics.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Hi, and thank you all for being here today. I'm really enjoying this. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a sore throat because of the weather, but so a couple of things. I mean, I have 3 questions, but I'm going to pick one to be kind to everyone else. So something came up, Kim, that you shared about, I noticed you were very intentional with your words, and you didn't say culture fit. You said culture add, and I noticed that. And I'm curious if there's a recipe for sort of working backwards to ensure, so say I'm like, I want to work at Indeed, and I look up everything there is to know about Indeed, and I see, like, these are Indeed's values, this is what Indeed is doing for the community, and I just do all that. And so that's sort of, starting with the end in mind, is there sort of a recipe that you have or any resources that you would recommend to help people like me in this situation to be able to, sort of work backwards and really like cultivate their narrative and their story? So open to hearing what you have to share and anyone else as well.
Such a great question, and I do use the word add, not fit, because I think fit gets us into a space where we're only hiring people like ourselves and building echo chambers. And so add is what is unique, what is different about this person's perspective, what, how do they think about things differently. It's really about being your authentic self and like not being afraid to let that come through in your words, and that's how we can tell what your point of view is. If we can't see what you have to say and how you think about the world and how you show up, it's really difficult to know what it might be to work with you and how you think about things and how you think about what collaboration looks like and all of that. And so I would say the answer might be just, and it sounds easy, just be yourself. No, it's work, and it's also courage to be able to be that authentic. But as a hiring manager, I respect it, I really value it, and it resonates with me.
Yeah, I will also piggyback on this. I'm involved in a lot of diversity and inclusion efforts, both at my previous company. I wrote up that whole document, even though I'm not in people ops, and I had plenty of work keeping me busy, but it definitely needed to be done. So I think what's important is, to Kim's point, be yourself. But sometimes people think that means, the values. I mean, it's great. You should definitely be aligned with the values of the company, but it doesn't mean like list them out like keywords in your cover letter. I think what is actually interesting in the eye-catching applications have been like very different from each other, and that's why they're cultural ads. So I remember one distinctly, a guy that ended up working on a previous team of mine. His cover letter was like so quirky. It was like, my grandfather told me, use things, not people. Like, it was just weird, but in a quirky way that is his sense of humor, right? So that's how, that was something of a line that stuck with me that wasn't even, part of the job description or something like that. But clearly it was aligned with the values that were people-centered company, obviously, and it was a very tight-knit group. So that called out to him, and he put it in his own words, or in this case, his grandfather's words. It doesn't need to be that you are very obvious in saying, like, I vibe with your values, but I feel like if you do that background homework and you weave it into your own form of a story, whether that's in your cover letter, through your on-sites, however you do it, then that is what I would say is the best that I've noticed, because everyone has a BS detector. You could tell, and I used to work in Switzerland, and I got offers for like private wealth clients, basically all the shady money of the world being managed by me. I turned it down, obviously, because I have morals. But anyway, I was BSing my way through those interviews, and everyone knew, right? I was answering the questions the right way, But it was clear that there's something in us that we can tell this is not coming from her core. So I would always be like the second person for those jobs. So if you don't vibe with a job or a team, it will come through somehow, unconsciously. So if you do, like, just, yeah, do what you got to do with the cover letter, the resume, and ace your interviews. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to this. Yeah, that some companies intentionally like build into your interview loop a BS detector, so that if you're using all the right keywords, right, you read up about the culture values, and it's like impact, data-driven, think big, find your North Star. You just have all the keywords. But they have this Jedi, as Facebook calls them. This person's job is essentially to filter out who you are versus who you want to come off. So yes, I love Kim's point, be yourself. I think that's the best self that any one of us can be. If you don't have anything to add, maybe we have some time for one more question.
I agree with what you said. I just second.
Hi, my name is Rilla. I have one question about the cover letters. So what are some of the patterns or positive traits that you've seen throughout the cover letters that worked for you?
So I can start with what doesn't work. I used to, again, coming from academia, cover letter definitely should only be a page. That's something where people might tell you resume is 1 page. I'm cool with 1 to 2 page resumes, that's fine. Sometimes people go 3, I mean, that's debatable. But cover letter should only be a page. It should not be that it's long. It's just that whatever is there has to be of substance. And the one thing you cannot copy and paste in an application is the cover letter. So I can very quickly tell if it's been copy and pasted. Sometimes, and this is like total red flag, where someone has copied the wrong title. And I think once I saw the wrong company as well. So I'm like, I'm sorry, this is not working. So those are like the obvious red flags. But yeah, so I think this is to the answer from before, like I was mentioning. If you read up on the company and the team, ideally, if it's like your lifeline. It's okay. Yeah, if you read up to the company and to the team, there should always be something that you need to personalize for that application, and that's the time to do it is in the cover letter. So it could be that you say, hey, I really like enjoy that, you know, you guys are very active or whatever. I don't know, like it could be, and also one thing, though I'm not on the grams, as I was looking for companies to work for, there are companies that have very active Instagram and or Twitter. So that's a great way for companies to recruit, and it's a great way for you as the prospective hire to also see what the culture is like, and then that's something that you can mention in your cover letter. Yes.
And I'm gonna do a shameless plug.
Do it.
For Indeed, we have the largest database of company reviews and information about what company culture is like. So definitely do your homework, because this is all about you and making sure you find the opportunities that best resonate with you and the companies that best resonate with your values.
Totally agreed with both of you. So now, luckily, the market is booming, and in my field, basically, data scientists, they can choose the employer. So sometimes people were in the good times, they were choosing what is the view. Okay, what is the floor? What is the view during the day? Do you have a coffee machine? Do you have a gym? So some employees, they're choosing the employers. And it looks like employers, if you go to the websites, they will put the photos, funny photos of their people. They will show company activities, funky things, funky stories, exactly like you said. So as a potential employee, you have to ask yourself, before even investing your time, like don't waste your time and recruiters' time if you really don't plan to work in this company. Some people, and I can spot it, and I had one time, like I told in preparation to this thing, we are talking only about good things, right? Let me touch bad things, right? What is the pain? Sometimes I made mistakes in the past. I made wrong hire because I hired someone over the phone. I never seen a person, and resume went well, and the technical exam over computer went well. And then we found out that the person, it's not the person who did the hackerang. It was not on site because I trust people. So I used to send the exam, and when person showed up, and then we said, okay, can you write this program? And the person said, I cannot do that. So I went through a lot of mistakes. So I went through some hiring mistakes, okay? When I hired, my hiring muscle was developed, right? I make good decision, and they say, Julia, how do you make good decision? It comes from an experience. And where do you get your experience? From the bad decisions. So in the resume, I got paranoid. So why I'm talking about reading between the lines? I'm reading between the lines good things, indeed. I want to see people who are passionate. And even if you don't know a certain language, that's fine. And I hired people who did not know SQL. And they told it. I do not know SQL, but I have double master in statistics. I hired them. And they were kick-ass, really perfect people. At the same time, there were people who really wanted the job to pay the bills. We all need to pay the bills, especially in the Bay Area. But they say, I know this language 8 out of 10. And then they show up in the interview and they know 2 out of 10. I don't it's okay not to know. That's fine. But once you state something that you don't it's okay to know. You remember, I had to mention Lean In of Sheryl Sandberg. Men, they apply for a position if they match 60% of the requirements. And women will never apply until they feel that they match 100%, right? So even if you apply with your 60% of what you have, sometimes they're none of the candidates that the company wants. But men would still apply, and then the company will, but company will choose, they will have only male candidates because female even did not apply. But still, again, I would hire a candidate who is sincere, who would not do the BS. And because I made these mistakes, I will also look at the resume for the gaps and inconsistencies. Again, it's okay when person tells me, I spent 2 years taking care of my child and I planned it. And now I took some classes in Hackbright Academy. I took some Coursera classes. Look, I did this portfolio. I did Kaggle competition. I see the spark in the eyes of people. And if they also put in the resume, I won Kaggle competition, and they can really stand when we do background check that it's real true, I would hire these people even with these gaps in the resume. Gaps, it's not bad. Gaps, it could be very good, and you will earn a very good candidate, right? Very good.
Is this on? Yes. Okay, perfect. I wanted to also add, from just a different hiring manager's perspective, that maybe our panelists are amazing. They are so diligent. I do not read cover letters. In many hiring managers, especially in tech, they focus on basically how good your profile matches to the problems that we need to be solved yesterday. And the one ask to what Julia was saying is that if you do not know Java, do not really say that you know it on your resume, because you're going to say it in the interview anyway, and it's best to invest the time in improving your knowledge of the relevant technology or relevant areas for the job, rather than talking to 30 different companies that all have the same requirement. So, thank you. Do we have time for one more question, or how are we doing? All right, let's have one last question, please.
Hello? No? Yeah? Okay. Oh, yeah. So speaking about gaps on resumes, people coming into tech, usually from another industry, leave off a relevant experience, but how big is too big of a gap? And if I'm not quite in like the exact role I want to be in, what are the keywords I should leverage in the roles that I've had?
I feel like this is two different questions, so I'll answer the first, and then I'll let someone else answer the second. So the first part of the question about the gaps, I purposefully went through resumes that actually had gaps, and sometimes they were actually not clear about what it was, and then on the phone interviews, if they had the skills, I would find out that maybe this person went on maternity or paternity leave. Sometimes people went on a world trip. Sometimes people went on a meditation retreat, sometimes to care for family. I don't necessarily need to get into the specifics as a hiring manager, but I think the best way to deal with gaps is to just be upfront about it, because not every hiring manager is going to do the extra work like I did, which was to get on the phone with you and find out. So I would just say, I've seen people put like the month and the year, or just the year entirely, however long you were away, and just to say what it was that you were doing. So it could be that you were traveling, it could be you were having a child, anything at all. And you can even do that in LinkedIn, and you could just leave everything else blank. As long as we understand what the gap was. Yeah, so I'll let someone else answer the other question about keywords.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
you should
answer
highlight. You can also answer
I was going to answer the part of like, how much is too much of a gap? And I feel like it's more so, what can you demonstrate for your capabilities? That's what matters most. I don't even think it matters like how long your gap was. It's, especially with like design, it's like, what does your portfolio look like? Doesn't matter how long your gap is. And I think that translates to other industries as well. How do you demonstrate what your capabilities are? And that is what matters most.
And then you can also put some sort of a humorous spin during your interview, like taking care of a child really helped me become a really great project manager. That's so true. But you don't have to mention anything specific. All right, I really want to thank the amazing panel that was with us today, Julia, Lida, and Kim, and also LinkedIn team, Indeed team that made this happen. So thank you, Galina, for organizing it. Yes. And is Jyoti here? Thank you so much. You ladies are an amazing team. Thank you for putting this together. All right, I think recruiters are, okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also, like, thanks so much again, panelists. You've been amazing. It's an amazing discussion, and thank you again for coming here. I also wanted to add, we here at Indeed strive and want to help people find jobs, and we have a professional team that have a blog, and we have a blog at Indeed. It's called, either it's a blog, Indeed.com, you can take a look. There is also a recent article from Kim, amazing. It's called, it's right here, give me 1 second. It's called Women in Tech, How to Attract and Retain Top Talent. It's worth your time to read, I promise. And another page can be really interesting for you is, unfortunately I can't show you. It's called Indeed.com/career advice. So there are really good topics, and they cover interview, how to pass interview, how to answer questions. Personally, it actually helped me to get this job. I spent, I don't know how much time. I was so happy to find that page. I was like, oh, wonderful. Like, I have these answers. Like, they're so, they're smart. So you see, I'm here now, so maybe they can help you as well. And again, if you didn't have time to have your resume reviewed, we have our recruiters sticking here for another 10-15 minutes. Please see them. If not, we probably have some food left and some drinks. Enjoy them. And thanks again.